You ain't clicked start button
Welcome
yet.
to Tech Tuesday on the Final Boss podcast, where innovation meets attitude and the future gets decoded one bite at a time. I'm your host, Turbo the CEO, and your co-host, Mike Foth. And today we're diving deep into the tech trenches to uncover the tools, trends, and truths shaping tomorrow. Whether you're a code slinger, gadget geek, or just tech curious, this is your weekly power-up. So grab your controller, plug in, and let's level up.
Welcome to the Final Boss podcast. It is Tech Tuesdays. It is Tech Tuesdays, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. The SME is back. The Sensei is with us tonight, live and in the flesh. Listen, we have a great show for you guys tonight, man. Episode number 166. And listen, no matter where you are, wherever you're tuning in from, guess what? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And welcome to the show. Sensei, how do you feel tonight, sir?
Living a dream. Remember, we study the machine. We study the machine. We do not argue with the decorations.
That's, man, that right there says a lot. Well, look, we got a great show for you people, man. To my smarts, to my warriors, to my motivators, to the final bosses. Look, if you haven't picked up Go Time yet, go get it. Go get it. You see it on display. Go get Go Time. All aboard the Fired Up train. Motivation workbook. You're going to love it. It's going to get you through. It's going to get you through these troubling times. Trust me when I tell you this. It's full of all types of principles and theories and lots of motivation disciplines, right? Most people see motivation as energy. We take on the aspect of motivation as a discipline. Go get all aboard the Fired Up train. Go time. Look, before we get into it, a few admin notes. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, all of our content, no matter where you see it. It's on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and Spotify. Make sure you go to check out all of those and like, share, subscribe, no matter where they are. Continue to leave us comments, man. The comments are crazy. Please continue to leave us comments. Tell us you like us. Tell us you don't like us. Hey, man, you guys are crazy. Go fuck off somewhere. Yeah, we like that too. So make sure you're leaving us comments. And we enjoy emails. Shoot us email at info@thefinalbosspodcast. That's info@thefinalbosspodcast.com. And last but not least, if you haven't seen our website, man, go check out our website. Go check out our website at www.thefinalbosspodcast.com. All one word, www.thefinalbosspodcast.com. All one word. Go check out the website. Now, again, tonight. Episode number 166. Are you familiar with Order 66? Well, this is episode 166. And if this is your first time here, this is Tech Tuesday, right? This is Tech Tuesday. Tech Tuesday is with the Sensei, right? And I am the final boss, right? And tonight, like every Tuesday, every Tech Tuesday, we sit down and we decode tech. That's reshaping our reality, not the surface level stuff, the infrastructure, right? The systematic changes that operate quietly until they become permanent. And tonight, we're talking about something everybody thinks they understand, but almost nobody explains, right? We're talking about food. We're talking about FOOD, food, not diet, not nutrition, not another argument about carbs versus fat. We're talking about the moment food stopped being biological and became industrial. That's right. I said it. right? We have the most difficult conversations here on The Final Boss. This is the right podcast that you need to be listening to for the right information, right? We're all on this journey together. So you're a part of the community and you're a part of the Final Boss Nation, right? And we're referring to when food became packaging, when meat became engineered, and why your body's response to that transformation wasn't failure. It was logical. The sensei is already in the stew, right? You see him, he's in the stew. And we got 60 minutes on the clock, zero fluff. This is the Final Boss podcast, and this is Tech Tuesday. This is how critical thinkers and curious minds stay ahead of the curve. Now, before we get started, I want to start today with something that sounds simple, but is actually isn't. Every single person listening to this eats food every single day, right? Every single day. Yet, almost nobody can clearly explain why food feels different now than it used to. Not just tastes different, not just looks different, but it feels different. It feels different in your body. Look, we argue constantly about diets, low fat, low carb, keto, vegan, carnivore, all these diet plans, right? We argue about sugar. We argue about meat. We argue about calories, but we almost never ask the question that actually matters. And here it is. What changed about the food environment? And why did the consequences show up slowly? We're talking about decades later, right? You feel it in your bodies. It's not immediate. It's slow, but it's happening. Sensei, before we touch plastic, obesity, or engineered meat, what is the conversation really about?
Well, we study systems, and that's what it's all about. Systems. Human biology, it's scaled in an environment that changed very slowly. The conversation is truly about scale colliding with biology. Food was seasonal.
Mm.
Food was local.
Mm-hmm.
Food was limited.
Correct.
And food was recognizable.
Yes, sir.
Then in the span of one human lifetime, food became global, constant, packaged, subsidized, optimized, stored and transported, reheated, reformulated, engineered. So we
Right.
went from basics.
Mm-hmm.
We went from the basics, and the body never consented to that transition.
Mm.
So what we're really examining today isn't whether any single food is good or bad. We're examining what happens when an industrial system replaces a biological one and expects the body to simply adapt without cost.
Wow. Wow. Let's pump our brakes and say, let's slow this all the way down. Take the people back to a moment they can actually visualize. If I walk into a kitchen, right, say 1962, right, we're time traveling. At least I am. You're supposed to laugh. What? Right. What am I seeing that I'm not seeing today?
So what you're seeing is food that still matches human expectations. It's not perfect food. It's not health optimized food. It's just food that hasn't been industrially redesigned yet. Look, most meals were cooked at home, not because people were virtuous, but because there wasn't a massive external food infrastructure yet. Butter was butter. Milk was milk. Eggs come from chickens. Meat comes from animals. Vegetables are seasonal. Sometimes they're canned, sometimes they're fresh. Sugar exists, but it's episodic. Dessert is dessert, not breakfast. Snacking isn't constant. And this part's crucial because this gets rewritten by nostalgia. People say people didn't stay lean because they were disciplined. Okay? They
Okay.
stayed lean because the environment did not overwrite satiety, meaning when you feel full. The environment didn't override that basic. When meals were built around animal fat,
Mm-hmm.
protein, and fiber, hunger shuts off naturally. You don't need calorie tracking because the body knows when it's full. It's done. Calories are self-limiting.
Right.
I mean, that's not willpower.
Yeah,
That's alignment.
that's true.
Your food aligns with your natural body.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're full, you're full. You don't keep eating. Obesity existed in the early 60s, but it was rare enough to be notable. That matters because it tells us something fundamental. The human body was not failing. The environment was still compatible. When the environment is compatible with the body is in harmony and everything just works. It's just simple. It was
Mm.
harmonious. You eat natural foods. They didn't have to be the best foods, but they were natural.
Right. Man. Mm. You know, this is where people this is where people usually jump in and say, well, people just moved more back then, right? But that explanation never really holds up.
No, it doesn't. Here's why. Some jobs are more physical, but plenty weren't. Office work still existed. Driving still existed. Sedentary behavior still existed. People sit on the couch. Okay? What didn't exist was constant metabolic stimulation. People were not eating 6 times a day.
Mm.
They weren't drinking sugar in between meals.
Right.
They weren't consuming refined carbohydrates paired with industrial fats at every sitting. Movement matters, of course, but it's secondary. It's not primary. Look, if activity were the primary driver, obesity would have appeared immediately when desk jobs expanded.
Right.
It didn't. It didn't. And
Mm-hmm.
the delay tells us the real story.
Right. So let's identify the moments things actually start to change. Right. Let's think about this. When does the system begin to bend?
It began in the late 60s into the 70s.
Mm.
And the key word is quietly. There was no announcement that said, we're going to redesign food. Look, the shift began with logistics, not nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
Society decided that food should be available everywhere, all the time, cheap, uniform, predictable. When you go to a grocery store on the East Coast, you get the exact same product as you buy on the West Coast. Doesn't matter what part of the country you live in.
Right.
Doesn't matter where you are. The food is all the same. But in order to make that happen, food needs a longer shelf life. It needs resistance to spoilage. It
Right.
needs a stable texture. It needs to survive transport. Now, plastic. This
Mm-hmm.
is when plastic enters the system, not just as packaging, but as an infrastructure. Think about that as an infrastructure, as part
Yeah.
of the entire process of the food,
Right.
not just packaging. We're talking about plastic wraps, plastic
Mm-hmm.
liners, plastic conveyor belts. Hell, we store our food in plastic storage bins
Right.
because it's convenient.
Plastic
Plastic
everything.
coatings inside
Mm-hmm.
cans and cartons.
Right.
Okay, you buy a carton of milk. What's the lining? Okay, plastic allows food to exist outside of natural time constraints. But
Mm.
at the same moment, on the other side of the coin, fats change. Animal fats are biologically familiar, stable, and satiating. You feel full when you eat animal fats, but they're expensive and they're tied to agriculture.
Right.
But seed oils,
Mm.
cheap, shelf stable,
Mm-hmm.
industrial scalable, and chemically extractable. So the system switches, not because someone hates butter,
Mm-hmm.
because the spreadsheet prefers soybean oil. And sugar follows the exact same path. It stops being a treat. It becomes a filler, a preservative, a flavor enhancer. Corn
Right.
subsidies accelerate this transition dramatically. And none of this feels dangerous in real time. It's like, oh, we're making progress. We're
Hmm.
able to have food that can sit on the shelf and we don't have to worry about going to the grocery store every single day. We can have
Wow.
food that lasts 2 weeks, 3 weeks that sits on our shelf.
Right. And I can only imagine that this moment right here, this is where the audience usually asks the obvious question. If the food changed in the 70s, why didn't people immediately start getting obese?
It's actually pretty simple. The bodies adapt before they break.
Mm.
And the first group that was exposed wasn't adults, it was children. Look, children born in the 70s, what did they grow up eating? What was for breakfast? Sugary breakfast,
Mm-hmm.
Cocoa Puffs, okay?
Yep.
Captain Crunch. It's
Mm-hmm.
marked as healthy. You get your daily dose of whatever. Yeah, sugar. Juices instead of water. How many kids nowadays don't drink water because they always have to have a juice pack in their face? What's
Yeah.
in the juice? Sugar.
Sugar.
Snack foods in between meals.
Mm-hmm.
Constantly snacking. And then washing it down with sugar.
Sugar.
Look, vegetable oils paired with refined carbohydrates. That equals constant food availability.
Mm-hmm.
And the metabolism calibrates itself to the environment. So nothing looks broken yet. This starts to become normal.
Right.
But metabolic programming doesn't show its costs immediately. It shows later when that child becomes an adult. The
Wow.
body changes when you hit an adulthood.
Mm. Man, let's give it up to the Sensei, man, for dropping those gems right there. Listen, don't go nowhere. We're just getting started. Yes, I'm talking to you. Stay right there. We got more to go, more to come. Now, based off the statement you just mentioned, you're implying that obesity isn't the cause.
No, no, it's not the cause. It's the receipt.
Mm.
Look, modern obesity isn't just too many calories. It's insulin resistance. It's disrupted hunger signaling. It's chronic inflammation. And here's the worst one of all. It's hormonal confusion. This is why the calorie math fails. It's why willpower fails. This is why exercise alone fails. Because your body is responding logically to an environment that no longer matches its design. And instead
Mm.
of questioning the environment, we blame the individual. You don't say, what's wrong with your food that you're taking in?
Right.
We say the individual's lazy. That's why they're fat. And this line matters. It needs to be said slowly, okay?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't get heavier because we got weaker. We got heavier because the food environment changed faster than human biology.
Wow. Wow. That sounds diabolical, man. Look, that right there. So let's stay right there. All right. Because when most people hear the environment, they still think in terms of food choices, portion sizes, fast food, snacking. They're thinking about what's on the plate. But what you're talking about is much, much bigger. It's bigger than that.
Much, much bigger. Look, the environment isn't just what we eat. It's what food lives inside of. It's what food touches. How
Mm-hmm.
long food sits, how far food travels,
Oh,
what
absolutely.
materials surround it the entire time.
Mhm.
Once food stops being local and seasonal, once it becomes industrial and global, the system has to choose materials that can support that scale. And that's where plastic enters the story, not as packaging, but as an infrastructure.
Mm. That distinction matters. That's a valid point because people hear plastic and think wrappers and bottles. Can you elaborate? Explain what you mean by infrastructure for the people.
Of course, plastic is the unseen scaffolding of the modern food system. It's not just what you throw away after you eat, it's what food rides on before it ever reaches you. But plastic lines the conveyor belts in processing plants.
Mm,
Plastic coats the storage bin. Plastic
mhm,
seals the vats, hoses, and transfer system.
mhm,
Plastic wraps the ingredients mid process. Plastic lines the cartons and cans. Plastic containers stack food in warehouses. Plastic bags portion food in restaurants. Plastic cutting boards dominate commercial kitchens. Once food becomes industrial,
mhm,
plastic stops being optional. It becomes the only material that's cheap, flexible, durable, and scalable enough to hold the system together.
mm.
Because it's everywhere, it becomes invisible.
Wait a minute. Wait, what do you mean? Invisible in what sense, Sensei?
Invisible in a way that infrastructure always is.
Mm, that point right there. Hmm.
And that's some scary stuff.
Yeah,
It's just you don't notice it. It's just whoop, here it is.
that's, that's a great point, man.
I mean,
Mm,
you don't think about the material in the pipes when the water comes out of the faucet. Did you know that all of the new houses that are built today are built with PEX? All the water lines are plastic. They used to be copper lines. No
right.
longer. All the houses, you buy a new house, all the lines are plastic lines. You don't think about the material in the pipes when the water comes out of the faucet, of course. You don't think about the asphalt when you drive on a road. Plastic has reached the same status. People think plastic exposure means chewing on a bottle cap, but that's not how exposure happens. Plastic happens through contact, friction, heat, time, and repetition. Food slides across plastic surfaces thousands of times. It sits in plastic trays for days, weeks, months. It's heated, cooled, reheated, transported, and stored in plastic. Look, plastic isn't attacking the body, it's persistently present. And biology reacts very differently to a persistence than it does to acute threats. So if something's just there, the body doesn't react the same way as if it's an imminent threat.
I, I think I just got sick. Like, seriously. And it's unfortunate, right? It's unfortunate. But this is where conversations usually derail. People either panic, like I feel like I'm panicking right now, or they dismiss it entirely. So let's get this right.
Look, microplastics are not an acute poison. We're not talking cyanide. You don't eat plastic wrapped food and collapse. It's a chronic load.
Mm,
Plastic breaks down into microscopic particles just through normal use. Heat, friction, and time accelerate that breakdown. These particles don't vanish, they don't go away. They
wow.
enter food, water, and even the air. And the body doesn't have a removal pathway designed for them.
Mm,
We don't have the ability naturally to remove microplastics from our bodies because it's so alien to us. So what happens? These things accumulate slowly, not enough to kill you quickly, but enough to apply a constant biological pressure. And pressure doesn't create dramatic symptoms. It creates adaptation, strain, and eventually dysfunction.
I got to think on that, man. Mm. Oh boy, that's that's a rough pill, man. That is a rough pill. people don't hear don't microwave plastic and think that's the whole story because it's not.
No, it's not even close. Look, heat increases molecular movement. Okay? Plastic is
Mhm.
not inert. It's a complex mixture of polymers, plasticizers, stabilizers, and additives. A lot of chemicals. When plastic is heated, the chemical migration increases. That means more shedding, more leaching, more breakdown. And here's the part that people don't want to hear. You don't need a microwave, okay? You don't need to microwave plastic at home to be exposed to heat-related migration. Food is heated during the natural industrial processing part, during pasteurization. When you buy milk by the gallon, what do you usually get it in?
Plastic.
And during transport
Mm.
in hot environments, during storage. By the time the food reaches your kitchen, it's already been thermally stressed multiple times. It's not a personal behavior issue, it's a system design issue.
Wow. Some people would say, well, the body adapts, right?
Of
Or the
course
body
it does.
absorbs. Yeah,
Of course it does. But adaptation isn't free.
right.
Look, adaptation under chronic load means trade offs. The body's going to prioritize survival, not
True.
optimization. It reroutes energy, it alters hormone signaling. Here we go. This is a big, big,
Yep.
big one. Hormone signaling. This is huge. It tolerates low grade inflammation. It changes your immune behavior. That's why modern disease doesn't look like poisoning. It looks like a metabolic syndrome, insulin
Mhm.
resistance, autoimmune conditions, chronic inflammation, hormonal disruption. It's not collapse, it's strain, and strain compounds. Think about this. It's not that our medicine has gotten better over the years. It's that we didn't used to have terms of metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, autoimmune conditions, and chronic inflammation, hormonal disruption. None of that even existed. It wasn't even there. It's been created by the environment. That's the strain, and it compounds and gets worse and worse over time.
You know, there's a huge portion of our medications that come in plastic and gel caps for easy
Oh, gel
swallow.
caps. That's right. How many gel caps you taking a day?
Oh boy.
Direct injection right there.
Man, the between, yeah, I'm not gonna mention the medications, man, but boy, whew, mm,
The medications cover up the symptoms. They never address the cause.
true.
And then once you get into one medication, it cascades into the next one to offset the side effects of the first one, and then the third one, and then the fifth one. And by the time you're done, you're taking a handful of stuff that just doesn't do good for your body.
Yeah, man. Look, to my motivators, to my warriors, to my smarts, to my final bosses. Sensei, I need you to connect this for me, right? Connect this carefully. Because people will hear this and jump to extremes.
Of course. Look, plastic doesn't cause obesity by itself. That's too simple. What plastic does is amplify an already mismatched food environment. You already have ultra processed food, refined carbohydrates, industrial fats. You have constant availability. What does plastic add to it? Endocrine interference. That's not good. Go look up that one sometime. You want to find
Right.
a fun subject to go study? Study endocrine interference. Immune activation and metabolic noise. Look, this combination makes hunger signaling less reliable. Feeling full or being satiated becomes harder and harder to reach. The signals are broken. So you don't get the signal which says you're full. This combination is deadly. Energy storage becomes easier to trigger. So obesity isn't about eating more. It's about the body choosing fat storage as the safest response to the confusing signals. And that's physiology. That's not failure. Your body's saying, hey, I got a choice here. I can survive or I can store this stuff that I don't know what to do with. And so it's so hyper processed, your body doesn't know what to do with it. It says, I got to store this fat. Think about that. Your
Yeah.
body's choosing to store this as fat over using it as energy. So you could be energy deficient, but getting fatter because your body doesn't know what to do with what you're eating.
Mm. Wow. 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 You know, let's take a moment. And thank you for that, man. Let's take a moment, right? Let's pull the lens back, all the way back. Let's pull the camera all the way back. Because nothing we've described exists in isolation.
No, this is global. Look, food systems are under relentless pressure. Population's growing. Urbanization increases. Where do people live? Think about that.
Yeah, that's true.
Protein demand rises. As countries industrialize, meat consumption
Mhm.
increases. That's constant everywhere. That's consistent.
Yeah.
Doesn't change. Animal protein is one of the hardest things to scale because it requires massive land, water, feed, energy, refrigeration, and transport. So the
Yeah.
system pushes forward into standardization, predictability. Think about this word, shelf life,
Right.
cost control.
Yeah.
And plastic enables that optimization. Once it's
Mhm.
embedded, it locks that system into place. It's already there. It's in place. It's
Yeah.
here. It's not going
So
away.
it's not going away, right? As a matter of fact, and this is something we should have another topic, right? Talk, and I'm gonna write this down, man, because as we're going over this information, I'm sitting here thinking, man, we're on our way to a meatless society, right? I'm
Mhm.
thinking critically, and the meat that we would consume in the future would be synthetic, and we will all live in smart cities. That's where the future is, right? And I'm gonna write that down, man, because that's going to be another conversation that we can have. But at this point, wait, do you agree or disagree, or what do you think about those thoughts?
It's inevitable.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's exactly what I was thinking. And this point right here, we haven't even talked about. We were just talking about. I just mentioned synthetics, but in this conversation, we haven't talked about the impossible type meat, and yet the logic is already visible. You can see that. Use your critical thinking. Listen, motivators, smarts, warriors, final bosses. We're not here to scare anybody. We're giving you the information so you can be prepared for what's coming down the pipe. That's what we're doing, right? As always on the Final Boss podcast.
Absolutely. Well, look, we've already laid it out. Food redesigned for scale, because you always hear of food shortages. So
Yeah.
we designed food to be at scale.
Mm,
Plastic embedded everywhere. The bodies are under chronic load, and obesity is a delayed signal. So whatever comes next isn't random, it's a response.
correct.
Once food is treated as something you design rather than grow, the next steps follow naturally.
Mm, man. So at this point in the story, we've walked through something uncomfortable. Food stopped matching biology. Plastic locked that mismatch in place. It's locking it in place, right? And our bodies respond with strain. Obesity showed up as the receipt. And none of that required malicious intent. It just required scale. So now we're at a point where we arrive at the thing that tends to hijack the entire conversation. engineered protein, impossible type meat, lab grown fermentation based designed food. Sensei, frame this properly for the Final Boss Nation before we go any further, please, sir.
Engineered protein doesn't enter the system as an idea. It enters as a pressure valve. Once a system can no longer meet the demand using traditional inputs, it looks for substitutes. Not because it wants to, the system has to. Once food has already been treated as a design problem for decades, engineered protein is not radical. It's consistent. It follows the path. It's the next step of logical progression.
Hold up. Let's slow this down. Why meat specifically? Right? Why is meat specifically becomes the breaking point?
Because meat concentrates almost every constraint a food system can face. It's biologically expensive. Go to the store and see how much it costs to buy a cheap
Woo!
ground beef.
Let's not have that conversation. Oh
Now
boy.
go buy some steak. How much does your steak cost in a pound now?
Man.
I mean, so is it cheaper to eat the cheap junk food
Mm.
or buy the good quality beef?
Yeah, most people are buying what they can afford.
And therefore you buying the
The
hyper
cheap stuff.
processed junk.
Yeah.
And then you
Mhm.
wonder where the obesity comes from because you
Yeah.
can't afford to eat good.
Yeah.
Look, to produce animal protein at scale, you need enormous inputs. There's a lot of land to grow the feed. You need water to sustain the animals and the crops. You need energy for transport and refrigeration. You need time for the growth cycles. You need cold chains. You have to prevent spoilage. And you have to handle waste at every stage. So, when populations were smaller and food was local, costs are hidden. You got a local butcher shop, you got a small town, the food doesn't leave your city, it's all there. But when you're feeding billions through centralized systems, it's unavoidable. Look, and demand doesn't flatten just because the supply gets stressed. As countries industrialize, protein consumption increases. That's not ideology, it's history repeating itself. So the system feels pressure from both sides. Demand is rising, supply is constrained, and that's when the substitutions appear.
You know, to add to that other conversation, I've always was curious, man. When you go past one of these fast food chains and they're always saying this many billions served, right? And you
Yep.
see it often. And it makes you question how many cows exactly does it take to serve billions served? But
You
that's
have to
another
wonder.
conversation we can have, man.
You
Uh
gotta wonder, don't put your
ye-
tinfoil hat on just yet, but you gotta wonder how much of that food is really not real food.
woo,
Like chicken
what
nuggets
if,
are not nuggets of chicken, they're parts.
yeah, yeah. What if all along we have not been eating the real deal all this time, you know? But
Sure
you
looks
look.
like it. Hmm.
And you know, people start to feel uneasy when you start talking about these type of conversations, right? Even if they can't articulate why, they still feel uneasy.
Because this is the moment when food stops becoming something you raise or grow. It
Mm,
becomes something you design. Look, engineered protein reframes food as a set of properties: texture, flavor,
mm,
shelf
yeah,
stability,
yeah,
nutrient profile, production efficiency. What Once food is abstracted that way, biology becomes just one constraint among many. And biology is slow, engineering is fast. So the
mm,
system naturally leans toward what it can control. How many times do you go to the store and what do? I have to read the labels.
yeah.
So you're just reading what? You think you're doing good, but in reality, you're just reading what? All the chemicals that they put in it.
Right.
And then you get label reading fatigue and you stop reading labels, don't you?
Yeah, you do.
Mm, imagine that. You don't think they lie on those labels?
Man, let's get explicit here. Let's get explicit. This is fucked up.
Hmm.
Why does the system like this? Why, man? Why? Why?
Because what's valued the most? Predictability.
Mm,
You can reduce it indoors. You can decouple it from seasons. You can standardize the output. You can control the input. You scale production vertically. Shit, you can reduce land use. You can smooth the pricing volatility. You don't have cost of goods going up and down based on the season. It's just always the same. From logistics, it's incredibly attractive. It solves many of the problems that plastic solved earlier. Shelf life, consistency, transport efficiency. It
mm.
fits the same optimization logic. Look, if you ever watched the movie Demolition Man,
Yeah,
what did they eat? Taco Bell was what?
yeah,
It was
right.
a tiny little pill.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
That's what we're going to.
Yeah. I was thinking, growing up, I was a huge Trekkie fan, and anytime they would order food, they would tell it
It got
to the
synthesized. It
yeah,
got
it was sympathized.
synthesized.
It was
Hmm.
synthesized. Yeah, yeah, yep. 3D printing of food. Imagine that. Looks like we're already here. You know,
We're already here.
one thing that helps people calm down is realizing this isn't unprecedented.
No, we've seen the pattern before, and this is so easy. And if you don't see this, you're like, oh, look, butter
Mm-hmm.
is replaced by margarine,
Margarine, right?
and margarine is what? One molecule away
Away.
from
Plastic.
plastic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Margarine is one molecule away from plastic.
Right.
Let that sink in.
Yeah.
But margarine can last how long?
Probably many lifetimes.
Long time, right? Sugar replaced by corn syrup.
Mm-hmm.
Animal fats replaced by seed oils. Each time, the substitution is framed as progress. It's cheaper, it's more stable, it's more scalable, and each time, the long-term biological effects just lagged behind the adoption. Engineered protein follows the same arc. Fast adoption, delayed biological accounting. And look, we blame everything on the person. You tell the person you're fat because you're lazy. You're fat because you eat too much. You're fat because of this reason or that reason. Not because of the entire food system that's in front of you that makes your body freak out. They don't talk about that because you can't talk about that. That's a no-no.
That's a great point. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, man, this is where logic alone stops working. People don't just disagree, they recoil. People don't disagree anymore.
No, you're scared. It's the scary stuff. Look, food isn't just fuel. Food is identity. It's memory. It's
Hmm,
family. It's culture. It's ancestry. Look, it's the love language, okay? How do you
yeah,
show someone you care about them? You feed them.
facts. Yes, sir.
Look, when food becomes engineered, something intangible is lost. It's not nutritionally necessarily, but relationally. People feel disconnected from the process. The system might say this is safe. And the body goes, oh, this is unfamiliar. I don't like this. And that tension's not stupidity, it's instinct.
Wow. That part right there is easy to miss. Because, even if the food is engineered protein and it works perfectly, what problem is it actually solving?
Only one problem, a supply problem. That's it.
Mm,
It does not serve a biological mismatch problem. Engineered protein can reduce land use, of course. It can stabilize supply. Great. It can
right.
reduce price volatility. Those things are wonderful. but it doesn't automatically restore alignment with the human body.
True.
It in many cases it deepens the abstraction. That's the
Mm,
risk. The system is excellent at solving logistics. It's just very bad at sensing long-term biological feedback. Nobody's taking into consideration what does this do to the human body over time?
right.
Because just like anything else, the cost is the cost. You want to know what's going on and why? Follow the money.
Always follow the money. Always follow the money. Speaking of which, speaking of following the money, bring this full circle. Let's look at it from 360.
Mhm. Look, obesity is not the failure. It's the early warning. It's the first visible sign that food stopped matching biology. Engineered protein is not the cause of that mismatch. The system's attempt to manage the consequences of scale. That's what's happening. If we ignore the warning and keep optimizing without realignment, the signals will multiply, not dramatically, but incrementally. You're going to
Mhm.
have more metabolic disease, more hormonal disruption. We're going to talk about that one. More immune dysfunction, more fertility decline. Systems don't collapse loudly, they just drift. They just drift.
Wow. Up to this point, everything we've talked about has been visible, right? Weight gain, visible. Metabolic disease, visible. Chronic illness, visible. Engineered food responses, also visible. But there's another signal that's harder to see, right? And harder to talk about because it doesn't show up immediately. It's in the mirror. It shows up later, sometimes generations later. And that thing is fertility.
Yeah. This is biology escalating the warning. In other words, you get a little ding, now you're getting a big ding. Look, weight gain, that's a surface signal. Metabolic dysfunction, that's a deeper signal. Fertility decline is the body saying this environment is no longer suitable for reproduction. And that's not moral, it's not political, it's biological prioritization. The body
Mhm.
is going to prioritize survival over reproduction.
And man, people tend to treat fertility as a personal issue, medical, private, individual. Why is that framing wrong?
No, because fertility isn't optimized at the individual level. It's optimized at the species level.
Mm,
Reproduction is expensive. It requires some stuff, right? Stable
okay.
energy availability,
Mhm.
predictable nutrition, hormonal clarity, low chronic stress, and low toxic load. When environments become unstable, biology doesn't immediately kill the organism. It quietly reduces the reproductive output. That's not failure. That's conservation. That's survival.
So if we zoom out across everything we've covered, right? Food stopped matching biology. Plastic locked that mismatch in place. Bodies responded with obesity and metabolic strain. Engineered protein emerged as a pressure valve. Fertility declined, showing biology pushing back. That's not a series of isolated problems. That's a system approaching a decision point. So the question becomes very, very simple. It's an uncomfortable one, but it's simple. What happens next, in your opinion?
Wow. It's like any large system. When it hits biological limits, it only has a few options. It can correct, it can contain, or it can drift. And none of these paths are painless. And pretending that there's a fourth option is how systems fail. Look, correction is simple. It means realignment with biology, not symbolically, structurally. It means redesigning food systems around local production, seasonality, shorter supply chains, lower processing intensity, materials that don't persist inside the body. It means accepting higher costs because there's going to be a lower convenience, less uniformity, more variables. Correction doesn't look like innovation. It looks like restraint. And restraint is expensive on a system built on growth. The next one, containment. It accepts the system is misaligned, but tries to manage the symptoms instead of fixing the cause. This is what we see right now. This is what's the most common path. This is what's happening right now, today, is containment. Containment looks like medical management of obesity, pharmaceutical fertility support, supplementation, engineers foods, tuned to hit the nutritional targets. Okay? Containment keeps the system running, but increasingly dependent on intervention, meaning you need doctor intervention just to stay alive. When your body's failing, when you start dying at a younger age, when you get Crohn's, how many people do you hear of that have Crohn's disease?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
It's your body saying, I'm not happy with what's going on, and I'm going to show you that I'm not happy. Drift. It's what happens when neither correction nor containment is chosen deliberately. We know that containment is what's chosen right now. That is the choice that has been put in front of us. That's what we are in right now is containment. 100%. There's not one thing that tells us anything other than that. We are in containment. But if you don't choose containment or correction, the system continues optimizing for efficiency. The signals are normalized, thresholds move,
Right.
new baselines form. Drift doesn't feel dramatic. It feels like this is just how things are now.
Wow. So where are we? Where are we realistically?
So we're not 100% containment. We're close. We're leaning towards containment and drift because the norm is the new norm. Look at how they're putting out there in the how now that they're the fat models. It's okay. You're a fat model. It's good. We like that. You have a fat butt. That's good. We don't fat shame because fat's good. So that's making it the new normal. So some correction is happening at the margins. Local food systems, regenerative agriculture, glass and steel is replacing plastic in the pockets. Some shorter supply chains for those who can afford them. And here we go. Living healthy is not cheap, but the dominant system is still optimizing for scale. And
Right.
that means containment is growing and drift is quietly normalizing the rest.
I'm gonna ask the question that I know everybody's wondering, and everyone's wanting to know the answer to. What do I do? What do I do?
Well, you can't fix a system alone, but you can reduce exposure. Not perfectly, but intentionally. Favor foods that are closer to the biological form,
Mm.
closer to the natural food. Reduce the heat plastic interactions when possible. Shorten supply chains when feasible. Lower your background load instead of chasing purity. It's not about virtue, it's about margin.
Wow. So, you know, one of my favorite things to do, especially on this particular episode, is zoom in and zoom out, right? So let's zoom all the way out. What story does biology appear to be telling us?
Well, biology isn't angry, it's patient.
Mhm.
It sends us signals through weight, metabolism, then hormones, then reproduction. Each signal is an opportunity to adjust. We haven't ignored the signals, but we haven't listened either. Look, the fork is still ahead, but the window for gentle correction is narrowing with time.
And we didn't I've been juggling about where to talk about the brass tacks and where I can get the most energy response, right? And I decided, I was like, man, this particular subject, I think the brass tacks will hit harder at the end of the conversation. So here it is, people. Here's the brass tacks of the evening, right? The real question is whether we're willing to design systems that listen to biology instead of forcing biology to adapt indefinitely. Because biology always adapts up until the point until it can't. And that's tonight's brass tacks. And guess where that brass tack comes from? That brass tacks comes from the sensei, ladies and gentlemen. That brass tacks comes from the sensei. So I don't want everybody to panic. There's no time to panic. This isn't politics. This is understanding the machine. When food became packaging, right? And meat became engineered, we didn't lose our humanity, but we did cross a biological threshold. And thresholds don't ask for opinions. They ask for attention. Correction costs comfort. Containment costs complexity. Drift costs resilience. Every system pays something. The only question left is when and how consciously. Sensei, again, sir, thank you for bringing clarity on this matter. We greatly appreciate you as always.
It is always an honor, Servo. It's always an honor.
Man,
Again, we study the machine. We don't argue with the decorations. And a lot of what we said tonight is that we are studying the machine.
right.
And people tend to take these things emotionally and personally. And like you got your folks that just they say that they're health freaks and they want to live healthy and clean and all that, but what they eat is still hyper processed and it's not cheap
Yeah,
living healthy.
true.
Look, go to your local farmers market. Get some stuff from there.
Yeah.
You can and do canning in glass jars, and you can save and process food like the old school folks did. Look, I'm going to say it this real simple. All right, I'll make it easy to understand, and it doesn't get any easier. This. Do you see a lot of fat Amish?
Hmm, that is a
What
great point.
what food do
You
they
you
eat?
you don't. You
They
don't.
eat they eat what they grow.
Yeah.
They eat what they grow.
Hmm.
They grow their own meat. They have their own gardens. Their food is not hyper processed. They store food according to the old school wet methods of storing food, but we're not talking, they don't use chemicals.
Hmm.
And that's
I
just a
think
simple thing right in front of our face.
I think we need to expand this conversation too, man, because I was looking at I think it's a show that's coming on or a report, and they were talking about how Japan is the most healthiest country on the planet, and people live they live the longest
Uh-huh.
in Japan as well. I think that's something to be studied. But thank you, man. To my final bosses, to the final boss community, this is what Tech Tuesday is all about. We don't chase the headlines. We study infrastructure. We decode systems. We understand the frameworks before they become permanent. If you're just discovering us, welcome. Welcome to the Final Boss community. Welcome to the Final Boss Nation. We broadcast live every Tuesday at 9 p.m. for Tech Tuesday. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us on Twitch, Kick, and Spotify. Right? We're out there. We've got Motivation Mondays. We got Merger Wednesdays. We have special guest Thursdays. And we have Sitting Down with the Final Boss Sundays, right? And Merger Wednesdays, which is tomorrow, right? We're going to explore consciousness integration. We're talking about the merge, right? This is systematic excellence. This is character development. This is tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 execution. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tag someone who needs to understand this framework. And remember, you're not a chess piece, you're a chess master in training. As always, stay fired up, stay systematic, stay Final Boss. This has been Tech Tuesday, episode number 166. We will see you again next week. And if all of that resonated with you, let that marinate in your spine, right? Because there's a heavy pain that comes with regret. There's a heavy pain that comes with regret, right? But the pain of regret is unforgettable. It's unforgettable. You never forget regret, right? So go out there and be disciplined. We are here. I am here. And to each and every last single one of you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Be balanced, be equal, and be smart. That is our show for tonight. Sensei, you want to close out?
Just stay alert, stay alive.
Stay alert, stay alive, people. That's our show for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week. See you soon.